You are watching Xirtus.
Technology is moving so freaking fast that I say I want to build a underground layer or a space station or a interdimensional printer that can create new realities or a time machine. Doesn't really matter. We have everything we could have ever wanted so close together that we can make anything happen. We can realize any dream. That's a big part of the singularity. All right, now Sean, you asked what about time travel,
I
right?
was
So would
wondering
you
what like time travel even is because it feels like each region of space time just has the property of matter, and nothing moves from one region of space time to another. Like motion is kind of just like an illusion. So is that just like putting your consciousness at a point somehow earlier in time, or is it actually reforming the universe around you so that it resembles a point
I think
earlier in
it's a
time?
little bit of both of that. It's Moore's law. So when you talk about singularity, another point of it is Moore's law. So we're getting to a point where transistors are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I was just thinking about this also. Do you guys think about what transistor technology is? It's not really computer technology, it's phone communication technology, right? Because Bell Labs made it, and Bell Labs was the first monopoly. I like to think about what it would be like in 1957 if we didn't make Exxon the biggest company in the world, right? Because before Exxon was the biggest company in the world, Bell Labs was the biggest company in the world. Bell was creating all kinds of stuff,
I
video
worked with a guy
camera
who worked at
phones.
Bell Labs.
They invented the transistors, and that was our future,
They
right? Like we should
invented
be living.
Unix and C++, and
Yeah, we
they
live
literally
in.
invented everything your modern computers rest on, like
Yeah, it's
everything.
called. It's also interesting because it's the Bell, right? The
They also
DeGlockin.
discovered the cosmic background radiation by
Oh, the
accident.
not the infamous Bell UFO.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
is
I'm not
that?
kidding because if you think about the
Oh
the
god, that
Bell,
thing looks like a death trap.
yeah, but the Bell Labs. If you look at the Bell Labs
I
logo,
feel terrible for any person or animal they put inside that thing. They must have been
Just
terrified.
constantly spinning, like
look at look
vomiting.
at look at the
Like,
look at the Bell
level
Labs
of
logo.
anxiety just about being put into that. Jesus
The
Christ.
Bell Labs logo
You're
looks
like a poor
very.
turtle and you have no fucking clue, or you're a human being and it's like, oh my god, I'm going to die.
All right, you get my point with the conspiracy that
Yes.
the Bell Labs communication, the Black Bell, they're definitely connected concepts, and that there was an antitrust monopoly case in order to divide up Bell so they could create manufacturing hubs like Intel, IBM, CTC became IBM, and eventually we got Intel as a manufacturing hub, which is now being replaced again through AMD, right? And so, I left off Xerox. I'm sorry, I left off Xerox. But Xerox, which was Park Labs research lab that Venrock used for Apple to create the GUI interface, which is now used in
It's just a
everything through
digital
Unix.
filing cabinet. All it's
All
ever
right,
been. It's all your computer still is. It's just really good. You're just
no,
pulling up
no,
pictures
I
out of a file.
disagree. I disagree because that would be if it was a computing technology, and it's not. It's a communication technology. This is the
Right.
scanner darkly.
Filing cabinets are a
Didn't some,
communication technology, even without the electronic aspects.
wasn't someone saying that the reason they suppressed Tesla's technology is because it would blow out everything that, well, like all modern circuitry and transistors and all that technology, like wouldn't be able to function if we were using energy the way that Tesla was suggesting? Am I
There are
mistaken
also
in that?
certain things that wouldn't function economically. Like you
I think
could
that was at a
transmit power
time
wirelessly.
we were using energy in a really weird way, and today we're about to turn 3 Mile Island back on so we can make AI art of cats. So I don't know. I mean, like our idea of how much energy should be or shouldn't be used has changed a lot. At the time, we also were just beginning our hydroelectric plants, and the amount of energy that we were receiving from hydroelectric was so beyond anything that we had capacity to even utilize at the time. I mean,
Well,
today,
also back then we used something called pulse radio, where instead of sending a continuous wave that could communicate something like voice, it was literally like click, 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 click. So if you made a click loud enough on a given radio frequency, that's the definition of an EMP. So it would fry something, yeah. So that would probably be useless. But there's also things that Tesla created that would be useless from an economic perspective. You could transmit wireless power miles around, but you can't meter that. So you have no idea how much all the people in that area are using, and then they're going to be able to access it for free. You can't prevent them from drawing on it. That means they're probably not going to pay you, and now you can't pay your workers to keep the machine running, and now the wireless power generation thing just falls to shit. So what you need to do is you need to do that shit old school, run a wire, know exactly how much everybody is using, and bill them so that you can keep
well,
your machine running.
all right, but then maybe Daniel, maybe you have thoughts on this because once you get to this level of Moore's law, where the things are so tiny, so close together that we're talking about angstroms and light is touching light, you almost don't even have a labyrinth for supercapacitance anymore. It's just anything is flowing right next to each other. The only way to keep light divisible and not to corrupt other information is spectrum, right? So all of a sudden you can say, well, this light is the red light or this light is the blue light, but you have multiple spectrums shining at the same time in parity over each other, right? And so you have multiple dimensions maybe of reality which are in parity at the same time. And maybe this is something to do with time travel. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? The idea that maybe light and space, as we hit a singularity, we have control over the actual maneuvering of ourself, of our frequency.
When you see singularity, do you just mean a point where a variable in a graph goes to infinity and it's not sensible to graph it anymore?
Kind of. Actually, that's something. So this actually gets into an almost religious question when you say it like that. I was thinking this the other day. I wrote this down. Probability of evolution of life by chance in a finite universe, roughly estimated from 1 in 10 to 40,000 to the power of 40,000, which is fine tuning of constants for abiogenesis depending on assumptions. Not a number I got on my own. Probability of life by a creator-driven design, however, conceptually shifts from chance to intent. And so from intent, implying an effective probability of 1. I mean, if the creator desires life to arise, you've got omnisufficiency. So from
what's the difference between a creator and a randomly generated life form?
So that was kind of my point. The randomly generated life form is irregular and improbable because you're talking about basically this is that really fundamentalist Christian argument that you are unlikely to find a watch in the desert created by a sandstorm.
God created life by making enough universes that it would kind of just spring about randomly in a few.
So I think that's
That's
the point of the architecture. Like there seems to be rules to architecture, and you have to wonder about omnipotence then. So if a
I think
god
we're
were to
confusing
create,
the how and the why, though.
How powerful is omnipotence? So it can
no, but I'm saying I think we're confusing the how and the why. Like, but if God created life by generating so many universes that some of those universes would have life in them randomly, then those two things would look identical, and there wouldn't be a functional difference between them.
Yeah, but that's still coming from the idea that phenomenological diversity creates finite, not finite creates diversity. You're starting from a god in that case either way. You're just saying that there is a certain amount of evolutionary freedom to that design, but even that freedom is based on submitting to the system of order, right? The natural law.
If you're like a farmer and you want to grow a certain type of plant, you just keep breeding them together until the one that has the desirable traits comes out. You know,
As above, so
create
below.
a wide enough field until the probability gives you the result you want.
So to me, that seems like you're creating the initial conditions, and so you're seeing whatever can make it through choice through those initial conditions. But you still create those initial
it's like
conditions.
if you build it, they will come.
Right. But then so you've got this system where it says life can happen if it follows my rules. Like I was saying, what's an omnipotent being? If God is all powerful, can God create a stone that God can't move, an immovable stone? Even
Satan
right?
is that rock,
right? Exactly. Because you have to be powerful enough to do something that you can't even deal with, but you have to. It's how. But
Satan is the one that shoves a mirror in God's face and says, "This is all your fault."
Oh, please, mortals of limited intellect, explain God. I don't know, Gene, do you hear my point? That if God is all-powerful, God can create something that God can't move, which is the universe, or Lucifer's architecture. Right? God creates rules that God has to follow. That's how powerful those rules are.
No, it's interesting that Sean said confusing the how and the why. I mean, the why is like equally important, I think. So I would say this, like when it comes to actual architecture, like what is architecture? Is it just the sum of its parts? Is it just buildings and shit like made in a cool way? No, it's like there's meaning behind it. There's an artistry to it, which is that you could look at architecture as just frozen music, like structures that you build so energy could move in and out of it. And, like, it's like, why would you build a beautiful piece of architecture aside from like its pure function? It's why bother making it beautiful,
I think God created all things that can be in a manifold that exists simultaneously. And we are one of those dreams, one of those manifestations.